Okay, go.
Alright. Okay, so the title of my script is Frequency. Now, Frequency is a... Well, it hasn't even moved. Wait, it has moved. Frequency is a short film ranged around 10 to 15 minutes and is a drama film, but is also kind of subgenre of tragedy as well at the same time. The themes of the film I'll get into more a bit later, but the main themes are man versus man and man versus themselves. The logline is: a young woman uses music to cope with her issues, but when it stops she is driven to the edge. The setting is set in sort of normal present day kind of setting. We have three main locations for the film. There is Sam's house, which is where the main protagonist of the film lives, and a lot of stuff will be shot there. There is Tony's cafe, which is sort of the place that's where Sam works, and a lot of the drama unfolds there. And then the Frequency radio station is used in the final scene, where the main twist and sort of reveals have sort of come through. I have ideas for where each location would be. For example, Tony's cafe in Disbury, there's loads of different cafes which have a sort of vintage, rustic kind of style. And the radio station would be hopefully shot in a sort of radio room at Brunswick Mills. Moving on to the characters, we have 6 characters in total. The protagonist, Sam, is the main character. She uses the music to help her through her day, that sort of her thing. Like, she is a bit sort of fragile in a way, but like once she's angered, she lashes out, that sort of style of thing. I'm not going to talk a lot about Chris, but only let you know that he is a radio DJ, and he's the one who you constantly hear over the radio. And then you've got Stacey, who is she's basically the meanest person you've ever met. So she just tries it out to get everyone, that sort of malarkey and stuff. Moving on to the adults, we have Rachel, who is Sam's mum, who she's kind of hiding a dark secret which is revealed later on in the film. We have Tony, who is Sam's boss, who obviously owns the cafe. And that is not Stacey, but that is Derek, who is basically Rachel's friend in a way, but there's kind of something going on there which is implied, so you kind of get that sort of vibe from him. So the overall plot, the day sort of starts off with Sam getting up. She's listening to the music because recently her dad had died in a drink driving accident, so she's kind of using music more than ever to kind of cope. So she always uses the same radio station to listen to because that's the one which helps her cope through the day. The day sort of like moves along and stuff until she runs into Stacey at work, who kind of angers her up and shows a little bit of her anger. It's like she lashes out and she doesn't lash out, she sort of hides it in, but doesn't really attack in a way. And she just she gets fed up, and then when she leaves for work she finds her mum in tears when she comes home. So she kind of comforts her and that sort of thing, like her mum regrets about what happened to her dad. The next day everything goes wrong for her. So like when she's sorting stuff out in the morning, it's all over the place, she's not on sync, so she's just having a really bad day to start off with. Later on in the day, Stacey comes back in and riles her up about her dad, and it gets to a breaking point where she ends up actually punching Stacey and then getting fired for what she'd done. So obviously at this point she feels the lowest that she's ever been at this point, and then when she gets home she overhears Derek and Rachel basically saying, because Rachel was actually in the car with her dad, but the thing is though, her dad wasn't the one driving, her mum was the one who was driving, and she regrets she basically lied to Sam saying that her dad was behind the wheel and he killed himself when she was actually there with it, so it was her fault. So out of frustration or that sort of thing, she needs the music, so she locks herself in a room and she's trying to cope, but the station isn't available at that time. So it ends up cutting to black and you don't know what happens, but then it cuts to the actual station where we find out that Chris, who is actually the radio DJ, is actually her ex long-time boyfriend. And the main reason why she listens to the station is so she can sort of keep in touch with him, because he's the only thing she could really depend on at a certain point. and she's done something bad. We don't really find out what, but she ends up basically in like a serious situation. You never see the situation, but you know that it's grave. Like we see Chris starting to panic, because he still kind of has a feeling for her, but then we find out later, like from the thing, that Stacey has actually been dating Chris as well. So when they come in, everything's sort of messed up, and like Stacey kind of realises what she's done, and it cuts there for the film. So that's an overall kind of semi-plot. The inspiration came from a personal experience and stuff as well. So when I was in like a dark place, I would use music to sort of help myself get out of like the dark place I was in. So like it was kind of like a way of me getting back to what I did and that sort of thing. And it also is a very topical subject, because suicide and like self-harm and all that sort of thing is a very common thing, especially now. That's all the pressures and stuff which are put into young people. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration for. A lot of the characters are based off people who I actually knew at some point. So like everyone always sort of knows, like there's always the shy girl, there's always the sort of guy everyone kind of knows, there's always the person you don't like, the biggest like mean person in the world. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration from. With the style, when I was sort of looking around, like I don't have a certain style I want it to be at this point, but certain ideas I had got sort of around my mind. For the sort of style and lighting and stuff, especially during the more dark scenes, it would be very similar to the film The Green Room, where like it's sort of like there's more sort of bolder lighting. Oh, back to me. But it sort of has a sort of creepier edge to it, especially during the darker scenes and such. And I've put Birdman on as well, because there's certain shots and tracks and stuff which I'd like to try, which are very similar to what you see in Birdman. And like I also like how each relationship in Birdman works along together, so that's how if I was to direct it, that's how I would want it. I can't think of anything else which I've covered, so any questions?
You did speak about those two films. Was there any other films in particular which inspired you in terms of any other themes like story?
There is a few, but not as like much inspired. Like I said, the more inspiration came from, because I mean this is a film which when I'm writing it, I can't think of anything which is off the top of my head which is related to it, if that makes sense. So like nothing's really the same. When I say the inspiration came from, obviously my own experience and stuff like that. So yes.
In terms of both location and characters, the characters that you had shown on screen, are those kind of the visual
look
you want?
like a kind of representative. So like costume and stuff as well. Like I kind of base like what I want them to look like, that sort of thing. So like I personally use sort of rock and that sort of music. So I'd like to. I mean, it could work for any genre, but I would prefer it to work to a genre which I love. So that's the main reason why, when shown on there, that's their sort of style and such. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, coming back to location, so those images, you want it to be set in England in modern day.
Yeah, England, modern day. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
Have you had any thought about budgeting?
I've had a little think about budgeting, but not as much as like intended yet. Like I think because obviously there's not many sort of special effects or there's any sort of massive issues like that, there wouldn't have to be like as big a budget as certain other films. Because I mean everything which is needed for this film is available in the area we are currently in, so it wouldn't be as much of an issue trying to sort that out.